The world celebrates National Women's Day tomorrow. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation will this afternoon hold virtual celebrations under theme A Gendered Perspective on a post-COVID-19 world. We are now joined via Zoom by Dr Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi. She's the trustee of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Dr Fraser-Moleketi, pleasure having you on the agenda. Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Look, it's an important day, no doubt. We go through the successes, we go through the challenges that women face. Talk to us about the event this afternoon and what's on the agenda?
Yeah, this afternoon, as from 2 o'clock, we will be having a keynote address by Professor Puleng Lenkabule, who is the first woman principal and rector of UNISA, the University of South Africa. And that is quite an achievement. But in addition to that, she stands strongly in her own stead as a feminist, coming into this position. So we will be having her this afternoon as our keynote speaker. And in addition, we will have Dr. Jomo Sundaram. He's from Malaysia, will be coming and speaking about the reality of the impact of the impact of COVID-19 on women, touching much on along the lines on the issues that had been raised by Sophie Mokoena earlier. In addition to Dr. Sundaram, there's going to be Miss Zamanzima Mazibuku, who is also a panelist, who comes out very strong in the knowledge economy, a scientist as well, and will be engaging on the theme for the day. And then we'll have a second part that will have breakaway sessions. Yeah. And the one of those breakaway sessions will look at health, and particularly looking at the issue of COVID from a health perspective. The second breakaway session that will be led by Lebogang Peko, also a renowned feminist economist. And in those two breakaway sessions, we hope to have an engagement that will be led by interventions that they will make, that will allow for a discussion on the issues of the day. Because I think we know and would like to make a point that a challenged world is an alert world. And at this particular point in time, with COVID-19, there is the hashtag choose to challenge. And I think it's a time for women also to choose to challenge. Yes, we know that women have borne the brunt of COVID, but we also recognize the fact that women are predominantly the caregivers in society. Yeah. They are the ones in the health sector. They are the ones who are the unsung heroines that are not even acknowledged, in the sense that if you look at salaries, and this is a global issue, the data that's available is that women earn 11% less than men. And this is a moment that we should ensure that we make that change, and we will do it in all spheres of society. Yeah. Because as stated by UN Women, women of the world want and deserve an equal future, free from stereotypes, stigma and violence, a future that's sustainable and peaceful.
I like what you said. It's interesting that you put it that way. A challenged world is an alert world. When times are at their worst, people do pay attention, isn't it? And hope for the best. Celebrating the achievement of women of all national, cultural, racial, economic and political persuasions this is in line with the United Nations theme for 2021, Women in Leadership Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Talk to us a bit more about that. In terms of how COVID-19 has exposed these fault lines that relate to women.
You know, in an interesting way, we've heard the UN Secretary General speak at the Nelson Mandela annual lecture last year.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm drawing on his speech was he said that the COVID world has almost served like an X-ray on the fractures in society. It has enhanced the inequalities, and we've looked at it more closely. And this is the inequalities between men and women, between rich and poor, and just inequalities in its totality. But it's also allowed for an opportunity for us to look at a reset. Yeah. But for that reset to happen, there's a need to be bold. So I want to make a bit of a different analogy. So we've all been forced to deal with issues more and more virtually. It has been detrimental in certain instances, in the sense that the kids that do not have access to data, do not have access to devices, were unable to participate in education as in an equal way as those who had access to those devices. However, in this period, it caused a faster move. So even at the SABC, the way I'm being interviewed has become a norm. So in a similar way, it shows that the world can adapt. Yeah. And that's why as women, we've got to challenge everyone and say, let's use this moment of great difficulty to be conscious and alert in a manner that we occupy our space. There was a black woman senator who said, if there's not a space for you, if there's not a chair for you at the table, bring a folding chair. With COVID, we want no folding chairs. We say that women have to occupy these spaces because after all, they play roles, whether it's in the informal sector or the formal sector. But the needle is not moving as fast as it should.
Right. Talk to us about moving that needle and what needs to happen within this year, within the next year, in order for us to get to a better place here in South Africa.
You know, reference has probably been made quite extensively today about the fact that the new Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi, is an African woman hailing from Nigeria, and she's come into that as a first. I've made reference earlier that Professor Puleng Lenkabule is the first principal at the University of South Africa, first in 148 years. We don't want a situation that we just talk about first. It should become a norm. It should be one thing where we say, looking at our talent pool, there are 50% of women that are being ignored and not taken into consideration to the degree required. We should recognize the women scientists that are out there, but we also need to educate and train all our children and young people so that they are all enabled to engage in an equal fashion. I mean, regrettably, if you look at certain companies and you look at listed companies, the number of women in CEO positions are dismally low. And generally people will say, oh, it's because women don't want to step up to the plate. Even when there are women ready to step up to the plate, there are men who try to be apologists about why they think they must stay on, and that must change.
Do you think in our current society that men don't respect women? I always say that our strength needs to be a function of our respect for one another. But is there enough respect in order to recognize the power of women?
You know, it's also about respect for yourself. Because I think if you don't respect another, it shows that there may be a major fault line in your own character. So in addition to respect, it's also dealing with biases and unconscious biases. There's too much of this. We see that as it relates to gender, and I want to use that broadly, you know, looking at the intersectionality as well between gender and race.
Yeah.
The whole issue of gender and disability and all. And I think we need to do a lot more. I spoke about the need for a peaceful society. When we look at the levels of gender violence in South African society, and Sophie Mokoena spoke about the whole issue of the impact of COVID on women and increasing gender-based violence. We also know about the impact on people's mental health and women's mental health. All these should change.
Yeah.
And it's high time. I mean, you know, it's also probably a responsibility on all of us, men and women, parents, to ensure that we bring out our children in a way that they should understand that irrespective of the gender of another, the sex of another, those are equal people who have rights that are equal to them as stated in our Constitution.
I just want to talk just more about the United Nations theme for 2021, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID World. And this theme, I understand, also forms part of the broader mandate of the recently launched Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. How so?
Well, you know, that school is special and it's very close to our heart because it's also one where we want to build an African leadership. We want young people to come through who are able to occupy their space and role as critical thinkers in society. The school was launched late last year, as you are aware, and we're looking at a number of areas. But I think the big issue and the big focus of the school is one to say that those that come out as graduates of the school will be leaders globally in African society, obviously, but even beyond that, where they'd be able to challenge the kind of stereotypes that we are currently grappling with today. There's a lot else to add, but I think for that, we need to add a special session.
Sure, no doubt. Just before I let you go, Doctor, the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Library, when will that be completed?
Well, I mean, when it will be completed this year, we're hoping to get some of the foundational phases right. It's clearly going to be a multi-year project, but watch that space, because if you look at the design of that library, it's clearly something that is also quite seminal coming out of the African continent, drawing on different parts from our soil in terms of the bricks that will be used to build that library, as well as the design itself. And it will be a place that will clearly be one as a center of knowledge and for thinkers from various parts of our continent and the world to come together and to engage on a range of issues. And mind you, in that library, we are ensuring that there is a space for women and women on the African continent, because we feel that in too many instances, her story has never been written. And not only are we ensuring that there's that space for her story to be written, but her voice will be heard, and she's part of the building of that library.
No doubt we will watch that space. Happy Women's Day to you, and all the best for this afternoon as well. Be well.
Thank you very much, and be safe and healthy too.
You too. God bless. All right, that was Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi.